And welcome. You are locked on to the NBA. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of the Locked On Mavericks podcast, and we're going to talk to Brendon Kleen from the Locked On Suns podcast right now to talk about the streaking Suns. But first, let me tell you about Built Bar. It's a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. They're absolutely delicious, and you can use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off everything. And you can go to the site right now, and there's tons of stuff for Cyber Monday. An incredible amount of things on the website right now. They have the coconut brownie chunk bar that is the GOAT, the absolute greatest protein bar you will ever have. 150 calories, 15 grams of protein, 7 grams of sugar. Plus, they have a bunch of new flavors on there. Some of them lemon dip cheesecake, I just got to try that one recently. Ruby chocolate, also just got to try that one. Caramel almond delight and white chocolate cheesecake, brand new flavors you can go check out at built.com. Again, use our promo code LOCKED15. You get a 15% welcome bonus. It also lets everybody know that we sent you there. So go check it out, built.com, promo code LOCKED15. All right, and welcome back to Locked On NBA. Thanks for making us your first listen every single day. You can subscribe to the podcast anywhere. We're free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, where you can see myself, Nick Angstadt, and Brendon Kleen here from Locked On Suns, talking about this streaking Suns team. I mean, in 16 win streak right now. That's close to the most the Suns have ever had, or is it tying for the Suns' most wins in a row ever in their franchise history? They're now 17-3, second in the West. What's the recipe they've figured out so far, Brennan?
They have more chemistry than any team in the NBA. I mean, I think that's really I don't even know if it's a recipe. It's just a fact. I mean, you watch this team play at this point in time, and yeah, they are one win away. The game against Golden State on Tuesday night on TNT will be them going for tying the franchise record. They could break it if they beat Detroit on Thursday after that game. So they have just they don't look like any other team in the league. I mean, and that's, maybe I'm biased because it's the team I watch the most, but they share the ball. They're flying around the floor. Like, the box score doesn't even do them justice in terms of how together they are. They get, they've had wins on this streak where somebody doesn't even score 20 points. They've had wins on this streak where, they just hold the defense back to, below, hold the offense, the opposing team down below 90 points. So they're getting it done kind of just whatever way they need to do, all because of that identity and that cohesion that they've really ridden ever since the bubble all the way back last summer.
This all started with winning 8 games in the bubble, is what you're saying?
Pretty much did. I mean, that was the recipe back then, right? It was just they played together more than the teams that they were facing and figured out a way to kind of just out execute those squads. And it's probably like overly simple to say that that's what they've done every night, but they just have so many versatile players. Devin Booker is, changing his game up a little bit. Mikal Bridges is taking a leap that's just super unique in his own way, where it's not so much scoring, it's just getting even better at all the little stuff that he already was doing. And everybody just fills their role. They're deeper this year, and they're just riding all of that stuff to kind of just get the job done, dependent on which opponent that they're playing every night. And we'll see what happens against Golden State, but it's worked so far.
Yeah, that selfishness, the selflessness, we're going to share the ball. We're going to share the ball, be up in the top 5 in assists per game. I think this team is. You mentioned Devin Booker changed his game a little bit this season. His scoring is down this year. Only 24 points a game so far for Devin Booker, which is not something we're used to. We're used to seeing Devin Booker just go out there and, chuck a bunch of shots, be on a bad team, like score a bunch of points. And this is it seems like a different Devin Booker. What has he done to change his game? What is he doing this season? Where have you seen growth and where have you seen regression in his game?
It's actually really cool. I mean, I think what we're really seeing from him is sort of a combination of that bad team Booker that you were talking about and the guy that he was in 2019-20. I mean, I think last year was actually sort of the outlier for him, where he was very clearly adjusting to playing with Chris Paul. His three-point shooting was one of the lowest of his entire career. He wasn't really getting to the free throw line, which actually he's doing even less this season. But you could just tell he was the guy who was feeling things out a little bit, deferring to Chris Paul late in games, trying to get the new additions, Jay Crowder, Cameron Payne, those guys sort of comfortable. Dario Saric, not so much a newcomer, but it was about everybody, right? And now you're seeing they're kind of still, obviously, like I just said, doing that sharing 0.5 second decision-making type of mentality, but they're doing it in a way that features Booker. He's been a little bit more aggressive, and the three-point shots are going in. I mean, that's really the big thing. It's his playmaking has gone up. He's rebounding a little better, but I don't know if that's so much a skill as just whoever the ball ends up with. But then the threes are going in. He's up to 41%, which would be by far the best of his entire career. His attempts are up since at the most since 2019. So that's really it. He's just kind of a more efficient version and kind of putting together that stuff we saw him when he was just jacking shots back before they really took their leap. And the guy that we saw, with Ricky Rubio and Chris Paul really start to like figure it out as a team player. And he's kind of doing both right now. So that scoring has been lower, but he's coming off of 2 big nights in New York against the Knicks and the Nets. And I think we'll see that scoring number rise because he's really firing on all cylinders right now.
I've heard of the 7 seconds or less Suns, but I've never heard of 0.5 seconds or less Suns. Explain to me what's the 0.5 second decision thing you're talking about on offense for the Suns?
Yeah, it comes from the Spurs, actually. It's just the idea that you think back to those the end of the dynasty when they really were just, nobody was playing more than 30 minutes. Everybody was scoring. They looked pretty similar to these Suns teams. Monty Williams started his coaching career there. Then obviously after the accident with his wife, that's how he got back into basketball, was as a vice president of basketball ops over there for a season or two. Took that, wanted to instill it. He was very much criticized back when he was the coach of the Hornets that his offense wasn't very imaginative. So he took this system. Brett Brown did it in Philly where Monty also was an assistant. And it's just what it sounds like. You either pass, shoot, or move within half a second of catching the ball. And, anyone who watches the Suns, I'm sure they're having that moment of like, oh yeah, I know what that means. It's exactly what we see that team do every night. And look, for Booker to be able to do this, I think with that mentality makes it even more impressive. I mean, it takes, a different kind of player to excel and score 25 points a night and make threes and dish the ball out to his teammates and do so without really, sitting on it and dribbling the air out of the ball. So I promise that was not a slight. I feel like I was saying things that make it sound like I was insulting other players, but I wasn't. It's just, that's what's so impressive about him.
Oh, we would never take it as a slight here. I don't host the Locked On Mavs pod with a player that may not believe in the 0.5 seconds.
They didn't beat James Harden, right? No, they didn't. the Suns are not coming off of beating and putting James Harden in a complete guillotine.
Oof.
That was what it was. But it's impressive.
Speaking of which, let's get into that. This win streak that has now been, I guess, capped off, but I guess continues on with this win against the Nets. What's gone into this streak so far? How have they won 16 games in a row? Let's dissect it a little bit here, because I see a couple wins against the Rockets, a win against the the Timberwolves, wins against the the Pelicans. There's just some wins, a couple wins against the Mavs without Luka, a win against the Nuggets without Jokic. Is this just the Suns taking care of good teams in front of them? Where have we actually seen the Suns get it? Like, what's the signature win in this win streak so far?
It's definitely been a build. I mean, over the course of the win streak. I mean, they've basically, I think it's been over a month now since the Suns lost a basketball game.
Oh, man.
And so they, at the beginning, this streak actually started when DeAndre Ayton was injured. And if you remember back to the highlights you were seeing on your timeline of Frank Kaminsky scoring a career high, that was how this thing started.
Yeah, I don't know if those made it to my timeline. I'm not sure about everybody else.
I hope they did. We all should hope that we got to see it. Frank is now hurt, so
they were throwbacks to like Wisconsin, I think. If I was going to see any Frank highlights.
Exactly. That's really the highlight of his career. No, but that's where it started. Was Ayton was out. He was dealing with this leg contusion, is what they called it. Then he comes back. Now Frank is actually out, but they didn't miss a beat. And so that was sort of rocky at the beginning. There was a lot of games where actually, I think they were wins, but Suns fans were still pretty disappointed. They were kind of barely beating their, worse, lesser competition. And I think the past week or so, especially going on the road, has been when they really kind of announced their arrival. I mean, they had a pretty big win against the Timberwolves, who are, that we kind of think of that as a pretty easy win, but they've been pretty good. That game was really close, really physical late. Cats, I think, scored 30 plus points. Then they went on the road. They beat the Cavs. They beat the Knicks. Now they beat the Nets. And I think that's where it's really starting to, like, I did a show to close out the week last week, kind of saying like, this feels like the best team in the NBA now. But I waited, a dozen games before I really was saying that. Because you're right, like, you beat the Rockets 2 times. Well, who hasn't beat the Rockets, right? So I think that's kind of where we are. And it couldn't be better timing, because Nets, Warriors 3 out of 4 games over the course of a week is the biggest test you could possibly face in the NBA right now, it feels like. So we'll see how real they are, and they might clinch this franchise record in the process.
What did that win against Brooklyn with KD going out for 39? You said that they put, James Harden into clamps or whatever you want to call Mikal Bridges, put him in clamps. But what does that win mean for this team? The Suns are all together right now. They beat the Brooklyn Nets. It seems like every time somebody beats the Nets, it's like, all right, we've arrived, right? Like, what does it mean for the Suns team?
I think it shows kind of an evolution, I think, of that identity that I was talking about to me, because, well, first of all, we got to see the reminder that the Suns don't just have one extremely good 3-and-D forward defender. They have two, because Jay Crowder did a hell of a job. I mean, yes, KD went for 39, but as we saw with the Bucks playoff series last year, you keep KD to, around 30 to 40 points and you win, and that's a victory. Like, it is what it is at that point. And so that was really huge for them, that Mikal was able to not have to guard KD and he could guard Harden at sort of the point of attack. And they've just been playing with insane pace. That's really been, in addition to just like going on the road and kind of proving it there, the bigger, difference lately is they've been pushing and pushing and pushing. I mean, Chris Paul has this reputation, right, of he comes to a team and they slow down. That is what happened last year for the Suns. Ricky Rubio was the guy who was pushing the ball down the floor. They were rolling in space all the time. Chris Paul comes, some of that stays, and Cameron Payne as your backup helps that a little bit, but they did slow down. This year, Chris is the guy kind of, I would say, adjusting a little bit, and you're seeing him really, push and sprint and look like those 7 seconds or less Suns that you name dropped a minute ago. He's having a very Steve Nash, Jason Kidd, John Stockton type of season where it's just everybody else is going to eat, and I'm going to be the guy who kind of just, takes control of the ship for a bit. And that's what I think they really kind of put together in that Nets game was having that versatile defense and then being able to turn it into offense, control the pace all night. And on the road, on a back-to-back, there's not much better of a test of if that stuff can hold up, and it did.
These Suns will now face the Golden State Warriors on Tuesday, a massive, massive game. For all the pregame, for all the post-game analysis about that game, go listen to Locked On Suns. Brendon Kleen, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Nick.